We're so convinced that we're this person, that who Lisa is, so you're convinced, or people are convinced, that who Lisa is this form, that she's actually a speaking, independent form that you're sitting listening to, and that she has free will and choice to independently move and is separate from all other objects. This is the conviction. This is also the energetic expression. Because you feel divided, you also see me as divided. I'm something away from you. Space. So this space here, this air, is dead space, is empty space, and it separates us. You're somebody in there, and I'm somebody here, and this is Lisa speaking. This is her speaking, and she's separate from you. And she can choose to do things. She can choose to behave in a certain way. She can choose to interact in a certain way or do certain things, or she chooses to sit and speak now. But actually, in the very moment, there is just speaking happening. Just like from your perspective, even though there is no you, but from your perspective, there is hearing happening. You're not choosing to hear. You're not actually hearing. There is hearing happening to no one. But that energy of the separate self contracts that hearing, contracts and pushes away Lisa and makes it feel like somebody is listening to Lisa. But in this instant, this is simply being heard. And who's it being heard by? Who is hearing the sound of Lisa's voice? Who's seeing Lisa's face? Most of humanity are totally convinced that it's them, and they are something which is in time. But time can never hear anything. So you, who you think you are, that walked into this room and turned the computer on and started listening to Lisa, that's time bound. That's something that existed in the past. How could the past listen now? How could the past hear something? But that's what we're convinced we are. We're a time-bound entity, and we're listening to Lisa. And we have feelings, and we've had a life, and we have sensation, and we have desire, and we have free will, and we have choice. But all of that isn't here. Everything you think about yourself is ethereal. What's actually here is presence. There is a presence. There is something that knows everything. And that something isn't you. Because everything you describe yourself to be, everything you feel yourself to be, isn't here. That's past. So you can never listen. You can simply be an experience appearing. An image, a feeling, a thought. But it's gone as soon as it's appeared. It's not a solid entity. But it becomes so strong, this entity that feels like it's inside the body. It's like an energetic feeling. It contracts, and it contracts the knowing, it contracts the consciousness, it contracts the feelings and sensations, and it makes it feel like something solid is here. Experiencing a separate out there, a separate Lisa. But all of it is appearing in knowing. All of it's appearing in awakeness. Something knows all of this. And that knowing never ends. It doesn't end at the edge of your skin or the edge of your seeing. Awakeness doesn't end. Everything now is awake, everything is known, everything is registered. But who's registering it? And this answer can only be found here. Who's registering what's happening? So does the sound of my voice peer out of presence, outside of presence? Does it peer outside of this awakeness? Is there ever been an outside of awakeness? Yes, the person says. There was the last moment. But that last moment, that image of that last moment is appearing in awakeness now. I get obsessed with this. Does this appear outside of knowing, outside of this aliveness? Where is the limit to awakeness? To this presence. Person's always saying, I'm the limit, I'm the limit. The body's the limit. The feelings are the limit. My ideas are the limit. And then because it feels limited, because it feels shrunken from what it actually is, this hugeness, this vastness, this emptiness and fullness, it then seeks to find something to complete it. Because it feels small and cut off, it looks for an object that will make it feel whole again. So it looks for love, looks for the perfect housing environment, for lots of money, looks for all of these things in order to not feel limited. But there's never been limitation, there's only been limitation in time. There's only been separation in time. What's separate here? You say, I'm separate from the sofa. But that's like a computer game. There's feelings of a body that feels a sofa, but that doesn't imply separation. There's an experience happening. And all of that experiencing is appearing and is known. And there's no limit to that knowing. Even if you said, yes, there is a limit, there's a limit of my feeling, there's still no outside of that feeling. That feeling is boundless. It goes on forever. It's such love. Even if you say, okay, my feeling of my arm is the end, it's also not the end. Because it appears in awakeness, and awakeness cannot end. Even your feeling cannot end. We imagine, okay, so I'm going to feel something else, I'm going to feel the wall instead. And so that's my edge. But just because you think that's your edge doesn't mean it's a reality. Actually, there is awakeness experiencing itself. And in the moment, it's completely unknown. It's not an arm feeling a wall. There is sensation happening that doesn't end and doesn't begin. And this sensation is a mystery. And then there comes the intellectual interpretation of that. But even that is appearing in this awakeness now. And that doesn't end. And then the thought pops up, yes it does, here's the end. Here's the beginning. But that too is boundless, appearing in boundlessness. Something knows that's endless. The knowing doesn't start and stop. The forms are coming and going, the sensations are coming and going, but the knowing doesn't end, ever. It doesn't start, it doesn't stop, it's totally still, and yet all movement is appearing in it, and is it? Everything is knowing. We think, I know from here and that TV is outside of my knowing, but that's not the experience. Everything appears in knowing, everything is known. Something other than the person is conscious. It's also conscious of the person that's appearing in it too. And that consciousness doesn't start or stop. You can't find an edge where consciousness stops and another consciousness begins. You can't find a back to it as well. You can't find where consciousness starts. You can't even find a consciousness that's separate from all things. Everything is simply awake. Everything is known. All the feelings and the sensation of Lisa, everything out there, but really there's not a difference between the sensation and out there, because there is seeing and the seen are the same thing. It's one sensation. The feeling and the felt are the same thing. I know it's really confusing. It doesn't really matter if you understand or not. It's just the tuning into emptiness speaking. So, because I'm not speaking from a place, there can be a resonating with that emptiness that's speaking, a knowing, a remembering. So even if you don't understand, there's the energy of it, the energy that's speaking from no place. I don't even know what I'm talking about. The mouth just opens and bop, 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 and it's known because the sounds are appearing, but there's nothing there that knows it, so it's an absolute mystery. This awakeness never dies, it never begins, it never belongs to an object, yet it's always awake. It knows itself, always. It never knows deep sleep, it never knows not consciousness, it's always self-knowing. And this knowing has two sides to it. It's totally empty and full of things at the same time. And it's just currently looking through these body-mind mechanisms, having the human experience. And in some of those human experiences, there's an energy that says, me, I'm having an experience, my life. But that's being experienced. That's not the experiencer. But that one that feels separate suffers because it's separate and it's always trying to complete its separation. Its mission on this planet is to find an object which will fulfill the lack, which will feel that sense of being separate from all things. So it's off on a mission to find the perfect woman, the perfect man, the kids, the perfect environment, to travel the world, to go to the moon, to become lovable. Off it goes, trying to get things inside it, consuming, and it never feels satisfied. And eventually, after a certain amount of consumption, after a certain amount of eating the cake, it feels disheartened by the game. It can never get there. It can never complete itself. It can have highs, it can have pleasure, but it always loses it. So you see the computer and you think it's you seeing, but you is being looked through in order to see the computer. Because in order to see this world, it needs a body to interpret it. So awakeness looks through this body in order to see itself as a computer. It didn't have an instrument to look through, it couldn't see all these. It needs the senses to see, to feel, to touch. And it gets so lost, and it's not awakeness that gets lost. Awakeness always is awake, but the human gets so lost in me. And it suffers because it believes it will die, that it has things, it can lose things. The true nature of this awakeness is total love. It's so vast and empty and intimate with everything. It rejects nothing. There's nothing which isn't loved, isn't supported, isn't held, isn't direct reflection of itself as that love. No matter what it is, no matter what appears, no matter how good or bad we judge it as humanity, it's a reflection of itself. Okay guys, so I see that some people said there was a problem with the stream, so